At 6:20 a.m. on Tuesday, September 2nd, 2003, the tranquil community of Bellevue awoke to the jarring echo of gunshots. Soon after, the wail of sirens pierced the morning stillness as officers from the Blake County Sheriff's Office raced to the residence of Diane and Alan Johnson. Inside, they were met with a grisly sight. Diane lay lifeless in bed, a single gunshot wound to her head, while Alan's life ended on the floor beside her, a solitary bullet piercing his chest. Their 16-year-old daughter, Sarah, though physically unscathed, was overwhelmed with hysteria. As investigators delved into the scene, they unearthed a tapestry of secrets, each thread weaving a narrative that led to a startling revelation. Who harbored enmity towards Diane and Alan, and what sequence of events precipitated their tragic demise? The answers lay shrouded in the shadows of a community, awakening to a morning marred by violence and loss. Today, we delve into the twisted case of Sarah Johnson in Bellevue, Idaho. Bellevue is a quaint town nestled in Blaine County with a population of just 2,200. Renowned for its fertile soil, potato farming, and gemstones, as well as its untouched natural beauty, this town, founded in 1882, sits atop a mile-wide plateau. Once a bustling hub in the mining industry, residents extracted a staggering $60 million worth of silver, gold, and lead from its earth. Bellevue offers its inhabitants the tranquility of suburban life blended with the serenity of rural landscapes. With a crime rate typically below the national average, the community was rocked to its core in 2003 by the shocking deaths of Diane and Alan Johnson. On September 2, 2003, the Blaine County Sheriff's Office was jolted by a distressing 911 call from Kim Richards, unveiling a mystery that would shatter the town's peace. According to Kim's harrowing account, Sarah Johnson, the 16-year-old daughter of her neighbors Diane, 52 years old, and Alan Scott Johnson, 46 years old, had frantically sought refuge at her doorstep, screaming that her parents had been murdered. In response, officers and first responders were swiftly dispatched to the scene. Upon arrival, law enforcement was confronted with a grisly tableau. Inside the residence, Diane lay lifeless in bed, a fatal gunshot wound marking her demise as she slept. The walls and ceiling surrounding the headboard were stained with blood, with a gruesome fragment of skull found on the floor nearby. Beside Diane's side of the bed, Alan's body lay clad only in a towel, blood pooling beneath him. Initially, the scene suggested a clear-cut case of murder-suicide. However, upon closer inspection, investigators' perceptions shifted. The sound of running water drew their attention, leading them to trace a trail of blood to the ensuite bathroom. The discovery of the running shower added a chilling layer to the investigation. Amidst the crimson-stained water, officers found blood splatters and a distinct bullet hole embedded in the shower wall. Meanwhile, the bedroom yielded more perplexing evidence. A .264 caliber Winston rifle lay on the floor near Diane's lifeless form, flanked by 2 kitchen knives. Another knife was unsettlingly discovered on their son Matt's bed. These clues left investigators baffled. There were no signs of forced entry, indicating a familiarity with the family's habits. The Johnsons didn't lock their doors, a detail known only to those close to them. Moreover, the absence of a ransacked house defied the typical aftermath of a botched robbery. As officers pieced together the sequence of events, they turned to Sarah for insight. According to her account, she had awoken to the first gunshot and rushed to her parents' room, calling out for her mother. Upon hearing a second shot, she fled to seek help from their neighbor, Kim Richards. Sarah insisted she hadn't glimpsed the intruder, a narrative corroborated by Kim's 911 call. The investigation took a dramatic turn with the discovery of the guest house, rented by Alan's close friend, 45-year-old Mel Spiegel. Inside, investigators stumbled upon a damning piece of evidence: the scope belonging to the same rifle found at the crime scene. However, Mel was conspicuously absent, his sudden disappearance elevating him to a prime person of interest. Lead investigator Sergeant Walt Femling wasted no time in sealing off the entire property and halting the waste disposal truck, suspecting Mel may have attempted to dispose of crucial evidence. The theory emerged that Mel, in a heated altercation with Alan and Diane, might have impulsively committed the crime. As forensic teams meticulously sifted through the trash cans, their efforts yielded a trove of incriminating evidence: a bundled pink bathrobe containing a latex glove, a matching brown leather glove found in the Johnsons' bedroom, and ammunition for a .25 caliber gun. Each piece of evidence was meticulously tagged and dispatched for DNA analysis, while investigators constructed their own narrative. It became increasingly apparent that the perpetrator possessed intimate knowledge of the Johnsons' routines, including their unlocked doors and trash removal schedule. The possibility arose that the killer had disposed of evidence in the trash before fleeing the scene. With mounting evidence pointing towards Mel, it was time for investigators to bring him in for questioning. Hours after the double homicide, sheriff's deputies received word that Mel Spiegel had been located in Boise, Idaho. Mel cooperated with investigators, meeting them at the police station in Boise. When questioned about his whereabouts on the morning of the crime, Mel claimed he had spent the weekend with his family and planned to return to Bellevue in a week. His alibi was corroborated by his family members. Regarding his relationship with Alan and Diane, Mel asserted that he had been renting the guest house from them for years and maintained a close bond with the couple. When asked about the rifle used in the murders, Mel admitted ownership but insisted it had been securely stored in his closet before he departed for Boise over the weekend. Investigators then questioned Mel about potential individuals who might have harbored animosity toward Alan and Diane. Mel disclosed that the couple had expressed concerns about their daughter Sarah's relationship with Bruno Santos, a 19-year-old believed to be living in the country illegally and involved in drug trafficking. Although initially viewed as a tenuous lead by investigators, Mel encouraged them to speak with other family members to gain a deeper understanding of the Johnson family dynamics. As investigators followed up on Mel's suggestion, they began to piece together a comprehensive picture of the Johnsons' history. Alan and Diane's journey began in the early 1980s. Diane, previously in a relationship, had a young son named Matt. Upon marrying Alan in 1983, he lovingly embraced Matt as his own. The couple then established their home in the serene city of Bellevue, Idaho, where they welcomed their daughter, Sarah Marie Johnson, into the world on January 25, 1987. Alan was actively engaged as the co-owner of a landscaping firm in Bellevue, while Diane pursued a career in tax administration. Together, they built a life filled with love, commitment, and the shared dream of nurturing their family in their beautiful home. The Johnsons were esteemed members of their community, with Alan's passion for trap shooting making him well known. From an outsider's perspective, their family life appeared harmonious in 2003. Matt, then 22 and studying at the University of Idaho in Moscow, and Sarah, excelling academically and athletically, seemed to thrive. Sarah, particularly cherished by Alan, was deeply involved in her school's volleyball team. However, beneath this facade of familial bliss, tensions had begun to surface in the preceding months. With Mel cleared as a suspect, investigators followed his advice and returned to Bellevue to interview family members. As expected, everyone portrayed the Johnsons as a content and loving family. Interviews with Matt, Diane's sister Linda, and brother-in-law Jim unveiled a different reality. They confirmed that family life had been happy and normal until Sarah began dating Bruno Santos. Sarah's relationship with Bruno had become a major point of contention within the family, indicating underlying tensions that had previously gone unnoticed by outsiders. In the months leading up to the tragic event, tensions within the Johnson household had escalated. Despite her parents' prohibition, Sarah, as a typical teenager, rebelled against their rules, persisting in seeing Bruno against their wishes. A pivotal revelation came from Jim, shedding light on a confrontation between Alan, Diane, and Bruno just days before the murders. Alan and Diane had discovered Sarah's deceit about spending the night at a friend's house, instead choosing to stay with Bruno. Enraged by this discovery, Alan, accompanied by Jim, confronted Bruno, threatening to report him to the police for allegedly assaulting Sarah. The gravity of the situation, with potential deportation looming over Bruno, served as a possible motive for him to harm the Johnsons. Investigators deemed it imperative to question Bruno, considering him a second suspect in the case. Bruno, known to county police for his involvement in minor drug-related offenses, proved confrontational and difficult to handle during questioning. Despite his defiance, Bruno claimed to have proposed to Sarah, asserting that she had accepted his proposal. This unexpected revelation added another layer of complexity to the investigation, raising further questions about Sarah's involvement and her relationship with Bruno. Investigators interpreted Bruno's statements as attempts to demonstrate his love for Sarah and his commitment to their relationship. However, his alibi, claiming to have been asleep on the couch at home, was deemed weak, despite his mother corroborating it. When questioned about Alan and Diane, Bruno's disdain for the couple became evident, raising suspicions further. Meanwhile, forensic teams meticulously combed through the Johnsons' residence, utilizing UV light to search for potential blood evidence that could indicate the killer's escape route. During the examination of Sarah's room, they made a disturbing discovery: blood splatter and bone fragments on one of the walls. This ominous finding added a new layer of intrigue to the investigation, prompting investigators to delve deeper into Sarah's possible involvement and the events leading up to the murders. The discovery of blood splatter and bone fragments in Sarah's room added another layer of complexity to the mystery surrounding the shooting. Investigators began to question the veracity of Sarah's account of what she witnessed that morning, considering the possibility that she may not have been entirely truthful. Further searching of Sarah's room unearthed additional incriminating evidence, including a single brown leather glove matching the one found bundled up in the trash, a key to the guest house, and unspent .264 caliber shells. One of the shells bore tissue matter, potentially transferred from the glove when the killer attempted to conceal evidence. All of these items were sent to forensics for testing, leading investigators to believe that Bruno may have been responsible for the murders and sought Sarah's assistance in disposing of the evidence. Investigators promptly obtained a search warrant and collected evidence from Bruno's house, including the clothes he wore on the day of the murders, his shoes, fingerprints, and DNA samples. Bruno was identified as the prime suspect in the murders of Alan and Diane Johnson. However, just as investigators were closing in on Bruno as the primary suspect, they received unexpected information that would redirect the course of the investigation in a completely unforeseen direction. Despite thoroughly examining the clothes and shoes taken from Bruno, forensic experts failed to find any traces of blood belonging to Diane or Alan at the crime scene. Furthermore, there were no DNA, hair, or fingerprint evidence linking Bruno to the couple's room. Tests conducted on the gloves and bathrobe also yielded negative results, leaving investigators puzzled. While initially considered the prime suspect due to his connection to Sarah and potential motive, the lack of physical evidence implicating Bruno forced investigators to eliminate him as a suspect. Despite their belief that Bruno had strong reasons to harm Alan and Diane, the absence of evidence suggested he might have been truthful in his statements. As investigators reevaluated the case, their focus shifted towards Sarah. They intensified their questioning of her family and friends, uncovering troubling details about her personal life. It was revealed that Sarah had been prescribed antidepressants, and her relationship with her parents was described as rocky at best. Although some attributed Sarah's behavior to typical teenage rebellion, her aunt, Linda, grew suspicious, noting that Sarah was not exhibiting the normal grieving process. With Bruno no longer a suspect, investigators turned their attention towards Sarah, considering her troubled relationship with her parents and potential psychological issues as factors in the investigation. Linda observed that Sarah appeared more focused on returning to school and spending time with her friends than on coping with the loss of her parents. When investigators questioned some of Sarah's friends about her behavior following the deaths, they confirmed that Sarah seemed indifferent to the murders. They noted that Sarah's main concern appeared to be getting her nails painted, and they found it unusual that she expressed more concern for Bruno since his arrest, rather than anger towards their parents' alleged killer. While investigators hesitated to entertain the notion, they had no choice but to consider Sarah as a possible suspect, given the concerning behavior and apparent lack of grief. Despite the difficulty in accepting this possibility, They recognized the need to thoroughly investigate Sarah's involvement in the case. The Johnsons' home remained an active crime scene, with investigators now focusing on Sarah's room as a secondary area of interest. They questioned how the blood splatter had reached Sarah's room, prompting them to bring in a gun expert to analyze the spatter pattern. The expert concluded that both bedroom doors were open at the time of the shooting, providing crucial insight into the trajectory of the blood. Plumbers were also called to the scene to address a clog in one of the bathroom toilets, which was caused by a shower cap. This discovery led investigators to interview Linda, Matt, and Mel Spiegel regarding the evidence found. Matt and Linda identified the pink bathrobe as belonging to Sarah, while Mel confirmed that Sarah had a key to the guest house and was aware of the gun kept in the closet. Despite these connections, linking Sarah to all the evidence proved challenging. Eyewitnesses on the morning of the murders reported that Sarah had no traces of blood on her when she sought help from a neighbor, a fact corroborated by forensic experts who found no blood splatter on her clothes using luminol testing. Investigators issued a warrant to confiscate and test the clothes Sarah had been wearing that morning. Meanwhile, investigators sought to speak to Sarah again to see if her story had changed since their last interaction, hoping to gain further insight into her potential involvement in the case. However, her inconsistent explanations raised red flags for investigators. At various points, Sarah claimed to have been asleep, awake, inside her room, and outside her parents' bedroom when the gunshots occurred. Additionally, she struggled to recall whether her parents' room door was open or closed during the shooting. Investigators carefully conducted the interview, aiming to avoid tipping off Sarah about their suspicions. They remained composed while questioning her, aware that her shifting story needed to be addressed. The discovery that both bedroom doors were open provided a clear explanation for the blood splatter found in Sarah's room, contradicting some of Sarah's claims. Despite the inconsistencies in her story, investigators continued their line of questioning, determined to uncover the truth behind the tragic events. They understood the importance of remaining diligent and thorough in their investigation, especially given the gravity of the situation. The investigation took a significant turn when forensic specialist Rodengard examined Sarah's pajamas. Despite finding no traces of blood on the front of the robe, Engard discovered patterns of high-velocity blood splatter on the back of the garment. Additionally, he identified blue cotton fibers and green paint specks on the robe's inner lining, matching the shirt Sarah had worn that morning. However, the most damning evidence came from the lab results, which confirmed Sarah's DNA on the inner lining of the latex glove and gun residue on both pairs of the brown leather gloves. These findings significantly implicated Sarah in the murders of her parents, providing compelling evidence against her. As investigators processed this new information, it became increasingly clear that Sarah's involvement in the crime could no longer be ignored. The evidence pointed towards her direct participation in the tragic events, shattering the initial belief that she was merely a victim. The revelation that the blood found on the gloves and robe belonged to both Alan and Diane provided compelling evidence for investigators to take action. Consequently, on October 29, 2003, Sarah Johnson was arrested for the double homicide of her parents, Alan and Diane Johnson. She was held without bail at the Blay County Jail, awaiting trial. The shocking nature of a teenage girl being accused of murdering her own parents captured national headlines and became a media sensation. As investigators and prosecutors delved deeper into the case, they pieced together a troubling narrative of a teenager caught in a whirlwind of passion and rebellion. Sarah's relationship with Bruno, which her parents vehemently disapproved of, became a focal point. It was revealed that Sarah had been sneaking around and acting out in defiance of her parents' wishes. However, the turning point came when her father threatened to have Bruno charged with assault and deported, igniting a fierce determination in Sarah. Investigators and prosecutors theorized that this threat was the catalyst for Sarah's plan to eliminate her parents and pursue a life with Bruno. Influenced by her fascination with true crime and murder mysteries, Sarah believed she had crafted the perfect scheme to achieve her goals. The morning of the murders unfolded as Sarah meticulously executed her plan. She retrieved the rifle from the guest house, ensuring she wore latex gloves, leather gloves, a shower cap, and her bathrobe backward to avoid leaving any incriminating evidence. Entering her parents' room, Sarah shot Diane while she slept, then confronted Alan as he exited the shower, fatally shooting him in the chest. With the murders staged to resemble an intruder's attack, Sarah planted knives in the bedrooms before disposing of the evidence in the trash, banking on its removal before investigators could intervene. However, Sarah's scheme unraveled as evidence surfaced in her room, including blood splatter and bone fragments, along with incriminating items like the gloves and rifle. The discovery of the shower cap lodged in the plumbing system further incriminated her. With the evidence against Sarah glaring, prosecutors prepared for trial, intending to present a compelling case outlining her motives, actions, and the calculated nature of the crimes she committed. After 5 weeks of testimonies, evidence, and crime scene analysis, the prosecution's case against Sarah Johnson appeared solid. Testimonies from family and friends highlighted Sarah's unusual behavior leading up to her parents' murders, while physical evidence found at the crime scene, including DNA matching Sarah's, pointed to her involvement. The most damning testimony came from Bruno Santos, who not only sought to clear himself of any involvement, but also provided crucial insight into Sarah's state of mind before the murders. Bruno revealed that he and Sarah had planned to marry and start a new life together, with Sarah expressing disdain for her father and even discussing the idea of shooting him. This testimony, coupled with other evidence presented in court, painted a compelling picture of Sarah's motives and intentions. Despite the defense's arguments claiming innocence and pointing to the possibility of an intruder, the weight of evidence against Sarah was overwhelming. In February 2005, after deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. This case is undeniably tragic, and the aftermath has left a lasting impact on the families involved. Sarah Johnson's conviction for the murder of her parents, Alan and Diane, has led to a lifetime prison sentence without parole. Despite Sarah's attempts to appeal her sentence, all appeals have been denied, and she remains incarcerated. Family members have expressed their devastation and anger over Sarah's actions. Her brother, Matt, believes she has shown no remorse and would commit the murders again if given the chance. Diane's mother, Pat Dishman, expressed love for Sarah but emphasized the devastation caused by her actions. Alan's sister, Lynn Morale, described Sarah as spoiled and capable of further violence if released. The question remains whether Sarah is truly capable of feeling remorse for her actions. Additionally, speculation lingers about whether Bruno Santos played a role in planning the murders and ultimately betrayed Sarah to protect himself. These are complex questions that may never be fully answered. The case serves as a reminder of the profound impact of violent crimes on families and communities. While Sarah Johnson remains behind bars, her actions continue to reverberate, leaving scars that may never fully heal.